Communication shapes every result you experience in the workplace. And yet, most breakdowns in performance can be traced back to unclear conversations. Now, at its core, leadership reflects the integration of how we think, act, and live, and across business, work, and life. And in the workplace, performance leadership is about aligning people, purpose, and processes to consistently achieve meaningful results. And although this podcast focuses on the traditional workplace, remember we are all called to lead in some way, whether or not we have a formal leadership position. And welcome to Coaching Talks, folks. I'm Richard Fontenay, and in this episode, we'll explore how to bring clarity and influence in your interactions. And if you haven't already, taken a moment to subscribe so you won't miss an episode focused on practical leadership growth. And thank you for doing so. Now let's get to mastering clarity in leadership conversations. Why is this topic so important? Well, because unclear communication creates confusion, and confusion slows performance. Clear communication, on the other hand, creates alignment, confidence, and action. So let's begin with a simple truth. People cannot act on what they do not understand. If your message is unclear, your results will be inconsistent. And if your message is clear, your influence grows. Today, I want to walk you through 5 leadership strategies that will help you communicate with clarity and influence in every interaction. The first strategy is to lead with purpose. Before you speak, ask yourself one question. What is the outcome I want from this conversation? Too often, leaders start talking without clear objective, and this leads to long discussions with little direction. Now, how many of you have attended meetings that go on without nothing? And that is precisely what I'm talking about. When you lead with purpose, your communication becomes focused. You guide the conversation instead of reacting to it. For example, in a team meeting, instead of saying, let's talk about the project, say, by the end of this meeting, we will agree on the next 3 steps and assign responsibilities. And notice the difference. Clarity creates direction. The second strategy is to simplify your message. Now, complexity is the enemy of clarity. The more complicated your message, the less likely it is to be understood. Strong leaders communicate in simple, clear language. They avoid jargon. They focus on what matters most. Think of it this way. If someone cannot repeat your message, they really did not understand it. A simple structure you can use is this. Here's the situation. Here's what needs to happen. And here is your role. And you want to communicate that in a way in which people understand it. Now, this approach keeps communication clear and actionable. The third strategy is to listen to understand. Many leaders believe communication is about speaking. In reality, it's about listening. When you listen with the intent to understand, you gain insight, you build trust, and you improve the quality of your responses. Consider a leader who interrupts or finishes sentences. By the way, this is something that trips me up. I am now conscious of it and catch myself and bite my tongue before interrupting and finishing sentences. What happens here is that interruptions and finishing sentences signal that your perspective matters more than someone else's. Now consider a leader who pauses, listens, and asks clarifying questions. This creates engagement and respect. A simple practice is to reflect back what you hear. For example, what I'm hearing is that you're concerned about the timeline. Is that correct? Now, this confirms understanding and strengthens the connection. The fourth strategy is to align words with actions. Nothing weakens communication faster than inconsistency. If you say one thing and do another, trust is lost. And without trust, influence disappears. Performance leadership requires alignment. Your words set expectations, and your actions reinforce those expectations. For example, if you emphasize accountability but miss your own deadlines, your messages loses credibility. On the other hand, when your actions match your words, your communication gains power. And people begin to trust not just what you say, but who you are. And the fifth strategy is to confirm understanding. One of the most common communication mistakes is assuming understanding. Leaders often say, "Does everyone understand?" And the room goes silent. Silence does not mean clarity. It often means hesitation or uncertainty. Instead, ask specific questions. Can you walk me through the next steps? What will you do after this meeting? Now, this shifts the responsibility from you explaining to them and that to one that demonstrates understanding. Now, what do you think of these 5 strategies? Are they doable? Can you implement them in your next conversations? And let me know in the comments. I would dearly like to hear from you. And I respond to all the communications that I receive. Now let me share a workplace story to bring this together. The supervisor was frustrated with her team's performance. Deadlines were missed and expectations were unclear. The supervisor believed she had communicated clearly. But when she took a closer look, she realized something important. She was speaking often, but not communicating effectively. So she made a shift. She started each meeting with a clear purpose. She simplified her messages, and she listened more. She aligned her actions, and she confirmed understanding. And within weeks, her performance improved. Not because the team changed, but because communication changed. This is the power of clarity. Now let's connect this to your own leadership. Where are your communication gaps? Are you unclear in your expectations? Are you overcoming and overcomplicating your message? Or are you listening to respond instead of to understand? Awareness is the first step. Action is the next. So here's your call to action today. This week, focus on one conversation, just one. Before the conversation, define what you mean by it. Define your purpose. During the conversation, simplify your message and listen actively. After the conversation, confirm understanding. Then reflect on the outcome. What worked? What can you improve? Leadership is developed through practice, and communication is one of the most practical ways to grow. Remember, you do not need to change everything at once. Small, consistent improvements lead to significant results over time. And as you build clarity, you build influence. And as you build influence, you encourage performance. And as you do this consistently, you become the kind of leader people trust and follow. Here's a suggestion. Bring this podcast into your next conversation, meeting, or coaching moment. Remember, leadership is practiced, one interaction at a time, and sustainable excellence is built in rhythms and not marathons. Now, if this conversation resonated with you, please subscribe, like, and refer to a friend. And thank you for doing so. I'm Richard Fontenay. Next week, our conversation will focus on strengthening relationships through deeper listening. I hope you can join us. Bye now.